The bell above the gallery door chimed softly as Monica stepped inside, clutching her worn leather portfolio tightly against her chest. The space was quiet, filled with polished wood floors, white walls, and minimalist frames that screamed high-end taste. It was the kind of gallery she had admired for years, the kind she had always dreamed of being part of. Dressed in a simple navy blouse and slacks, speckled with dried paint from late nights in her studio, Monica walked nervously toward the front desk. Behind it stood Judith Caldwell, the gallery's owner, a tall woman with icy posture, platinum hair swept into a tight bun, and reading glasses perched low on her nose as she scrolled through something on her tablet. Monica took a breath. "Hi, my name is Monica Avery. I'm a painter and I was hoping to—" Judith didn't look up. "Appointments are only scheduled through email." "I understand," Monica replied politely. "But I live nearby, and I thought I could just show you a few pieces. I brought my portfolio." Finally, Judith glanced over her glasses, her expression unreadable. Her eyes drifted over Monica's face, then down to her clothes, then back up. "We specialize in contemporary European and abstract minimalism," she said, her tone clipped. "We're not really taking urban submissions." Monica blinked. "Urban?" Judith's lips curved into a thin, polite smile. "There's a community arts center on 14th. They may be more receptive. We curate a very specific clientele here." For a moment, Monica didn't speak. Her throat tightened, heat rising behind her eyes. She had faced rejection before. But this was different. Not about art, not about skill. This was dismissal before a single page had been turned. She swallowed the hurt, nodded silently, and turned toward the door. As she reached it, Judith's voice called out, almost as an afterthought. "Good luck with your work." The bell chimed again as the door closed behind her. Outside, Monica stood for a moment on the sidewalk, heart pounding. She opened her portfolio, looked at the vibrant colors and raw emotion inside her paintings, stories of Black history, culture, joy, and struggle, and took a breath. She knew one thing for certain: this wasn't the end of the conversation. Not by a long shot. 2 weeks later, Monica stood behind her modest table at the local art fair, nestled between food stalls and handcraft vendors in a city park. Her booth was simple: a canvas backdrop, a folding table with mounted prints, and a single easel holding one of her favorite pieces, a striking portrait of an elderly Black man with eyes full of wisdom and history. She'd saved money from her part-time tutoring job to cover the booth fee, unsure if anyone would stop, unsure if anyone would care. The early hours were slow. A few passers-by nodded politely, some glanced at her art, and kept walking. Monica tried to smile through the quiet ache of doubt that crept back into her chest. But she stayed. She believed in the work. That had to be enough. Around midday, a man in a gray linen suit and thick-rimmed glasses strolled past, then slowed. He circled back to Monica's booth, his eyes narrowing slightly behind his frames as he studied the painting on the easel. He said nothing at first, just looked, leaning in, arms crossed. Monica stayed quiet, letting the moment breathe. Finally, he spoke. This has presence. Who painted this?" "I did," she said, trying not to sound too eager. He looked at her, eyebrows lifted in pleasant surprise. "What's your name?" "Monica Avery." He pulled a small notebook from his jacket. "I'm Calvin Rowe. I write for Art and Form magazine." Monica blinked. "Really? I've been to 3 gallery openings this week and haven't seen anything that stopped me like this did." He glanced back at the painting. "You have something. Your lines, the depth. It feels lived in, personal." He asked her about her background, where she trained, what inspired her. She explained she hadn't gone to a top-tier art school, that she learned by studying others, painting every day, and drawing from her own life. He scribbled notes, took a photo of the piece with permission, and promised to be in touch. Monica watched him walk away, her heart racing. She didn't know if anything would come of it. People said a lot of things in passing, but something about his tone had been different. Real. 3 days later, an article appeared online titled, "The Hidden Power of Emerging Voices. Monica Avery's Art Speaks Without Permission." It featured a photo of her painting, a quote from their conversation, and a final line that lit up her phone with messages for hours. Sometimes the most important. Art doesn't hang in a gallery. It waits patiently in the places we ignore. By nightfall, her Instagram had tripled in followers. Her inbox was full. And for the first time, Monica realized the tide was beginning to turn. Not because someone gave her permission, but because she'd never stopped showing up. Monica sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, laptop balanced on a cushion, scrolling through messages faster than she could respond. Gallery curators were suddenly reaching out. A podcast about rising artists wanted to interview her. A boutique hotel in Atlanta asked if she would consider selling prints for their new renovation. Everything felt surreal, but she stayed grounded, writing down names, reading contracts slowly, and checking every opportunity twice. One message stood out. It was from a young curator named Devin Matthews, who ran an independent black-owned gallery across town. He'd read the article about her and had been following her work quietly for weeks. "We're putting together a show focused on authenticity and resilience," the message read. "No gimmicks, no boxes to fit in, just real stories from artists who've been overlooked. I'd love to feature you." Monica felt something click. Devin wasn't just another person chasing hype. He understood. She agreed without hesitation. The following weeks were a blur of preparation. She pulled out canvases she had been hesitant to show before. Pieces too emotional, too raw, too bold for coffee shop walls. Now she had a place for them. She titled the collection Unfiltered, and every painting held a piece of the journey, from her grandmother's laughter to her own quiet moments of self-doubt. Opening night came quickly. Monica wore a deep emerald dress that contrasted beautifully with the colors of her art. People filled the gallery, not just to take pictures, but to really look. Some cried. Others simply stood in silence, nodding. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her voice, once dismissed as too urban, now echoed on the walls in every brushstroke. Devin walked up to her as the evening wound down. "You know," he said, smiling, "you're not just a part of this show. You're the pulse of it." Monica felt the truth in his words. She hadn't just earned a spot, she had created her own, and somewhere deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning. The story wasn't over. It was finally being heard. The morning after her exhibition, Monica woke up to a string of notifications and emails that seemed to glow brighter than usual on her cracked phone screen. Her name was trending locally. Photos from the gallery opening had been shared by influencers, art critics, and even a few celebrities who had quietly attended. She stared at the screen, half in disbelief. Then came an email with a subject line that made her laugh out loud. "Exhibition opportunity, Caldwell Gallery." It was from Judith's assistant, the same Judith Caldwell who hadn't even glanced at her portfolio weeks ago. The email was formal, as if the past had never happened. It praised Monica's recent, notable presence in the art community and extended an invitation to participate in an upcoming group exhibition titled Voices of the Future. Monica stared at the screen, shaking her head. There was no mention of their previous encounter. No acknowledgement of the moment she'd been dismissed at the gallery door like she didn't belong. She didn't respond right away. That afternoon, Devin stopped by with a bouquet of sunflowers and a grin. "You've got options now," he said, "real ones. Real. But don't let them rewrite the story. You built this yourself." Monica nodded. "I'm not going to let anyone erase where this started." Still, she decided to reply. Her message was brief but firm. "Thank you for the invitation. While I appreciate the interest, I've chosen to focus on spaces that believed in my work before it became convenient. Best of luck with the show." She hit send without hesitation. There was no bitterness, only clarity. She wasn't desperate for their walls anymore. She had found her own voice, her own stage, and her own people. The invitation, though flattering, had come too late. The door she once knocked on was behind her now, and the one ahead was wide open. A month later, Monica received a call she hadn't expected. It came from the city's Cultural Affairs Department. They were organizing a major exhibition at the city's largest contemporary art museum. The event, titled Visions of Tomorrow, would feature breakthrough voices reshaping the cultural landscape, and Monica had been personally recommended as one of the headlining artists. She sat in stunned silence, the voice on the other end explaining how her story, the grassroots rise, the passion in her work, the refusal to conform, had become symbolic of something much bigger. "You represent the shift that's happening," the caller said. "We'd like you to anchor the opening exhibit. Full wall." A full wall. Monica could barely process it. She threw herself into the work like never before. Her studio transformed into a chaotic symphony of canvas, brushes, sketches, and color tests. The final piece was unlike anything she'd done. a sprawling mural-like painting that wove portraits of everyday Black lives into an explosion of emotion, memory, and hope. It didn't whisper. It roared. On opening night, hundreds of people filled the grand halls of the museum. Monica stood beside her work, dressed in a tailored black jumpsuit, radiating quiet power. As she greeted guests, she noticed a familiar face lingering near the back of the room. Judith Caldwell. She was alone, staring up at Monica's mural, with a stunned, almost haunted expression. Her lips parted slightly as if she was trying to reconcile what she was seeing with the person she once dismissed. Monica walked over calmly, heart steady. Judith turned. "This is breathtaking," she said, her voice quieter than Monica remembered. "I had no idea." "You didn't want to have an idea," Monica replied gently. "I came to you first." Judith nodded slowly, guilt flickering in her eyes. "I made a mistake." Monica looked up at her painting, then back at Judith. "We all make choices. Some of us just learn from them later." She didn't need to say anything else. The art had already done that for her. And in that moment, with her work lighting up the gallery and her name on everyone's lips, Monica realized she had transcended the judgment that once tried to confine her. Her presence was no longer a question. It was the answer. Weeks after the museum exhibition, Monica found herself walking through the same neighborhood where her journey had begun, past the cafes she used to sketch in, the quiet bookstore where she once sold postcard prints, and finally past the steps of Caldwell Gallery. She paused, watching a new group of artists entering for a showing. A banner fluttered above the door. Emerging voices. Ironic, she thought. Inside her bag was an invitation, this time addressed personally, with Judith Caldwell's name signed at the bottom. Not for a group exhibit, not for a trial wall, but for a solo show, headline billing, full campaign, opening reception, everything she had once dreamed of. She hadn't yet decided if she would accept. Instead, she walked 2 more blocks to Devon's Gallery. The place was buzzing with young artists, setting up for a youth mentorship exhibit Monica had helped organize. A teenage girl was hanging her first painting. Monica offered a gentle nod of approval, and the girl lit up. This was where it mattered. Monica didn't need approval anymore. Not from the old guard, not from gatekeepers, who once couldn't see her worth until the world told them to. She had forged her path, and now she was holding the door open for others. Back in her studio that evening, she stood before a blank canvas. The light from the window spilled over her worn brushes and oil-stained apron. She smiled. Not because she'd won, but because she'd arrived, fully, unapologetically, and on her own terms. And as she dipped her brush into a deep, rich crimson, she whispered to herself, "Now let's see what's next."